Good evening, everyone. We are back here during this exciting time. I'm excited. From the sounds of it, it sounds like a lot of other people are excited too. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to hear the final two applicants for the District 2 seat. This is a really exciting time here. So I'm going to go ahead and call us to order. And the first agenda item is a moment of silence. Now, last week I spoke about some of the things that were actually going on, with black males and police. But today, during our moment of silence, just wanted us to kind of just think about the safety of our schools. There was an incident in South Carolina, and a young man, I think he was 6, lost his life. I have 2 5-year-olds, and so that hit really close to home to me because I like watching them walk into school now. And I know that when they get into school that they're safe. And I can only imagine that his parents, when they dropped him off for school, they thought he was safe. But they got a call in the middle of the day that he wasn't safe. And so for our moment of silence today, I would, you can think of what you like, but just for a moment, think about what we do as a school system as it relates to safety to to the children that we serve. It's our duty to provide a safe environment for them to learn and be happy, if only for during the school day. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Number 3 on the agenda is agenda approval. Does this agenda meet the board members' approval?
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am. Well, for this meeting, we actually do not have public comment for this meeting. None whatsoever. All right, so all in favor of the approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. It passes unanimous. Just as last week, the candidates are to speak for up to 5 minutes on how they could contribute to the board's focus on the established guiding principles, academic excellence, teaching the whole child, racial and social justice. The objectives for specific focus are improving teacher retention, improving academic achievement for boys of color, increasing access and community support for early childhood education. So with that, I'm going to invite our first speaker up. A little bit early, but early is good. Our first speaker is going to be Nadia Porter.
Good evening. I'm coming before the board and my community today in honesty, transparency, and vulnerability. It is my goal in seeking this seat on the board to revive faith in the community, to revive faith in the board, and to revive democracy within the Durham public school system. The board faces a continuum of challenges, and while all of these challenges are delicate and deserve immediate attention, I want to first highlight that early education services for our youngest students are being intercepted. Although education expenses are covered for all students in Title I schools, and additional funding sources mandated by the IDEA Act cover students with disabilities, my daughter and the majority of her classmates are only able to attend for 3 out of the 5 days each week. She is therefore left to fill in her education gaps in a daycare system that is not prepared or required by law to follow any type of developmentally appropriate education plan. And while this issue affects my child, this type of early education inaccessibility plagues many at our school and quite possibly at other schools as well. The ability for low-income parents to work and provide for their family is largely dependent on free, quality early education. In order to provide our children with a good foundation, we need to look closely at problems like these and make sure that we are creating space for all children to access educational services. I find the lack of achievement of young boys of color a particularly intricate issue. Last year, I was invited to participate in the Second Chance Lobby Day at the Legislative Building in Raleigh. While I was outside, I noticed a group of students on a field trip touring the Capitol, none of which were students of color. My 4th grader has been in the Durham public school system since kindergarten. She participated in one school outing at a Hillside High School performance, but she has not attended any educational field trips to date. I imagine a school system where our children, particularly young boys of color, have exposure to education outside of the classroom and are gifted with the opportunity to learn about the workings of our world, which include the mechanics of our state government. I've heard several stories about the Black male experience in the Durham public school system that are concerning. While I won't highlight them here, I do want to stress that in the event of disciplinary action, we must provide counseling for those who are on the receiving end of harm, as well as for those who have created harm. This philosophy is both proactive and preventative. One of my goals is to look at ways the school system is addressing the harm that occurs on school property. Furthermore, in a world where males of color are having to fight stereotypes of an enormous variety, our schools should take responsibility for the ways in which Black males are perceived. I believe that we can do this by increasing access to opportunity and reintroducing them to society as achievers, eliminating the supposition that they are the failures that we have directly or indirectly encouraged them to be. And I want to touch on teacher retention briefly, not because it's unimportant, but because the solution to this issue is somewhat simple. We should change the way we approach this outflux of teachers that are leaving the profession by changing the way we describe it, because words have power. We should replace the term teacher retention with teacher restoration. To break it down, the word retention is defined as the continued possession, use, or control of something. Restoration, on the other hand, refers to the act of returning something to a former owner, place, or condition. Synonyms for restoration include repairing, fixing, mending, reconditioning, rehabilitation, reconstruction, and redevelopment. Those synonyms are the steps needed to eliminate what we now call teacher retention. Teachers leave for numerous reasons. Let's find out from them how we can best address their needs and look through a restorative lens as we address them. And if we are actively working to meet the financial, emotional, and instructional needs of our teachers, the keeping part will take care of itself. Today, I stand in agreement with my community and the board by saying yes, enough is enough. These areas of focus are vital and must be given full attention. And although my experience is just that, my experience, it is representative of obstacles that too many face under this educational structure. And I'll end by saying this. Famous magician Brian Miller once said, "Our world is a shared experience fractured by individual perspectives." But fortunately, we in this room have a shared objective, and we are the resources, the talent, and the imagination needed to put the pieces together. And we have to do it because our children depend on it.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Thank you. And then our next and final speaker will be Christine Folk.
Good evening. My name is Christine Folch. Sometimes it's pronounced Folk. But I'm a professor at Duke University, and I wanted to talk a little bit about why it is that I'm committed to DPS and to education in our public schools for this seat. I am a product of public school, K through 12, and so I've seen what it can do for young people, and I've seen some of its challenges as a person who's in it. But also as somebody who gets to teach the products from our public schools, I also see what it is that are the strengths, the challenges, and the opportunities of students. I've taught a whole range of young people, from the most prepared to those who are first-generation high school graduates who are coming with lots of questions about the hidden curriculum in the classroom and outside the classroom. Durham itself presents incredible opportunities and challenges. These are some that come from the demographic shifts that the city has seen, but also some that come from the larger shifts in terms of school funding, in terms of the challenges of teacher retention, and in terms of the dynamics in the United States around how we prioritize public education, where we see so many resources going to other institutions that pull away opportunities from our public schools. So with that, the vision that I have for the Durham public school system is one that is inclusive, that thinks about all the students in the classroom, the full diversity as our city is growing and changing, but also that thinks about where we want young people to be as they finish school. So thinking about where they go after they graduate, whether it's directly into the workforce, whether it's into some sort of training program, whether it's into a 2 or a 4-year institution or more. So some of the changes and challenges that have occurred in our city are a rapid growth of students from Hispanic backgrounds who are predominantly Spanish speakers, but also students from other backgrounds. We have a larger growing population of Asians, both from the subcontinent and from East Asia, as well as a strain in terms of resources for our numbers for students who are getting free lunch and free breakfast are higher. And what this means is it means that the students who are in our classrooms have needs that require creativity. I think that actually the needs that require creativity are actually potentially the source of strength for this community. And the reason is that we live in a globalized world, and Durham is already a global city. What's going on inside of our classrooms is actually not just a challenge, it's actually the strength, because it prepares young people for a world where they're constantly having to cross cultural boundaries, constantly having to cross linguistic boundaries, constantly having to work with people who are different from them. And I think that this is one of the strengths of the classroom, and this is one of the things I'm committed to. I think another strength of our classroom, but also a challenge, is the educators who are drawn to these kinds of classrooms. Our teachers are interested in working with, are highly committed to young people in the midst of constrained resources. They are committed to working across cultural boundaries. I've seen classrooms that are incredibly diverse. Although I'm quite new to the Durham community, many people are quite new to the Durham community. That's one of the opportunities. I specifically am interested in thinking about how to help connect the Durham Public Schools to our business opportunities that are growing in the Research Triangle. And I think it's a real loss if our young people are not the ones who are actually getting opportunities even in high school to be exposed to potential jobs. I also think we have incredible institutions of higher learning in this city. North Carolina Central, Duke are just some examples. And I think it's really important to connect young people, even before high school, to get them exposed to what it looks like to be in college so that they can imagine it for themselves, because this is one of the interventions that public school can do. And for me personally, as somebody who learned English in North Carolina, Spanish was my first language. My father was stationed at Fort Bragg. I specifically am here to speak in concern for the 28.5% of public school students who are Hispanic. And 1 out of 3 is a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fulch. And with that, that will end our presentations from the applicants. Thank you very much, Ms. Porter and Ms. Fulch, for coming out tonight. Moving forward, we will be reconvening on the 5th. Yeah, the 5th at Wednesday at 4:30. We're expected to take a vote at that point. So until then, I will leave us adjourned. Thank you.